that Bible. Give me that mic, I'll drop Jesus in it. Wait so we can make a disciple. Can't surpass Christ, there's no taking.
What's good, everybody? My name is Jonathan Solomon. I'm one of the team members that is putting on the Transcend Conference, a celebration of Christ and culture where we're just seeking to make big of Jesus Christ, specifically through Black culture, though it is for all peoples. I'm sitting here with Pastor Hezekiah Cunningham-Bey. Look, if you're at your house right now, I need you to put your hands together because this is one of the best hidden secrets in God's green earth. Pastor Hezekiah Cunningham-Bey, a preacher, a counselor.
Don't overhype it.
A man of God extraordinaire, and one of the speakers at the Transcend Conference, along with Professor William Deuce Branch, Pastor John Amuchekwa, Dr. Robert Smith Jr., and Pastor Clint Darst. We have the privilege of sitting here with him. Pastor Cunningham-Bey, how you doing, man?
Chilling, Doc. You know what it is.
Yeah.
Just chilling, man. Yeah. Excited, though. Yeah. Excited about the conference.
Yeah.
What's going to go down.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm just glad to be a part, to be in the house.
Yeah, excellent. That's church language. Glad to be in the house.
Yeah. You know what it is, Doc.
Excellent. So listen, we just wanted to sit down with everyone that we could before the conference began, just so people could get to know who it is that's going to be speaking.
Yeah.
So I just have a broad question. You could be as targeted or as big as you want to be, but
okay.
Who are you? Who is Pastor Hezekiah Cunningham-Bey?
Okay. I'm a man of God,
right?
Created in the image of God,
right.
I'm a father of many children. No, I'm just playing. I'm a father of 4.
Yeah.
1 daughter, 3 sons.
Excellent.
I'm Black, African American, however you want to swing that.
Yeah.
I'm that. I'm a product of Black church, Black culture, and I'm just a man after God's own heart, man. And I'm just trying to seek the Lord.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Y'all, one thing I love about Pastor Hez is that we have, me and him have similar yet very different backgrounds, and so even in the Who Are You, when he talks about being a product of the Black church, many of you may have heard of this denomination before. Some of you may have not, but it's called the Full Gospel Baptist denomination, started by Bishop Paul Morton in 1994. Now, it is very Pentecostalish, and that is a similar background that I come from. But Pastor Hez also has a very thick hip hop influence, even in his Christianity. Would you comment on that? What has that been like to have both of those?
Yeah, so I guess if I started at the beginning, I grew up in Far Rockaway, Queens, New York.
Queens stand up. Yeah.
Queens stand up. Rock all day. Which was and I grew up in New York in the early 80s,
right.
Which was an interesting place to be during that time. I'm from the projects, essentially, the housing, however they, I forgot how they call it, but I'm from the projects in New York and Far Rockaway. And for me, hip hop was it. That was the culture, that was the way of life, that was what we knew, whether it was how you dress with the J's and the Helly Hansons back then, the polo. We was doing it all back then, but
right. That's kind of fly to me.
It was fly. It was fly. I kind of missed that era of dress and all of that, but the culture was just so dominant where I grew up that it was like you didn't have a choice of being part of it or not. It's just what you were because of what was around you. And so everything about it was me, and I was it.
Yeah.
I am a hip hopper.
Yeah.
I'm a spitter, so I used to, I used to get on the mic a little bit.
Pastor has to rap, y'all. He playing. Let's go ahead.
I don't do it as much, but like that was a big love of mine, just growing up, and so that was just a part of me. That was a part of my life. It still is a part of my life, and it's like it's reflective of who I am. Yeah. But also, my mother was in a church, so actually, I didn't grow up in a church as a young kid, so my mom and my dad, right around when I was born, we was part of what's called a Moore Science Temple of America. Right. I grew up as a
they black y'all. They
most people have never heard of the Moore Science Temple, but I was like born into it, so it wasn't I went and joined it. Like my name is Hezekiah Cunningham-Bey. That Bey on the name is an indication of me being born in that. It was on my birth certificate. That was my given name, and it's not going to change. People have asked, like, why haven't I dropped it or whatever, but that's the name my father gave me. And so I was born into that. And then my mom and my dad separated, and my mother ended up going back to the church. She was in the church before that, and so she went back to it. And for a good part of my life, I grew up in the church because I was with my mom. But I also would go back to the Moore Science Temple whenever I was with my father. And so that was a big part of my life growing up. And then, the more I was with my mom, the more I was in church. So that became part of my life also.
So I'm so glad that you're talking about that. So at Transcend, this is for everybody, and Pastor Hez knows this already. Our interest is not in blurring the lines of culture, blurring the lines of ethnic brilliance like in history. But we're more interested in looking at how Christ has been faithful to people in the different narratives that every ethnic group has had. And so particularly with black people, so hearing about even your upbringing, that is what people would stamp a stereotypically like black person type of upbringing onto that. Usually what happens is people will get into the church and almost try to dismiss that as the Lord didn't really start working until he got me into this like camp of mine, or like into this doctrinal way of mine. But how, like, just in your upbringing through all of it, and even you could comment on like while you're in full gospel, like how did you see Christ in his gospel shining through even in those contexts? Like talk to us about that. That'd be excellent.
I remember one thing that has stuck with me like my whole life. I remember being with my dad actually in a meeting, and there was this discussion. I was too young to really grasp the understanding, but one thing that I understood and took away from that meeting was that that like God is infinite and we're finite. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I wrestled with that. I was super young then, but I wrestled with that throughout a good bit of my life, and that just kind of stuck with me. But even in that circle, growing up, I always was influenced by black men, and so I got to sit around black men talking about God and the things of God, even in that circle. And then when I came to my home church, that's in Raleigh, like I was a part of that, and then I was around like black men talking about God and talking about the things of God and talking about family. And so that was influential. I went to a HBCU. That was instrumental. He should have put on his Winston-Salem State shirt.
So, y'all, real quick,
today.
Let me interject. I I too went to HBCU, North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University here in Greensboro, North Carolina. But I do have this kind of like goal of mine before I die to have a sweater from every HBCU. So I had to swallow my pride to accomplish this goal, and I'm still on the way, but I bought a Winston-Salem State
He should have wore it today.
University sweater.
He should have wore it today.
And we're not like, our campuses aren't like Friends, but it's all love in the HBCU corner. Like,
I got love for A&T though. I got love for A&T.
Yeah,
It's been like a second home to me, only because I spent a lot of time in Greensboro. But even being at Winston-Salem State, it like shaped me into understanding who I was as a black man. Yeah. And so what all three of those institutions did for me was to help solidify me in having a strong identity about, you know, the Lord blessing me with who I am. And this wasn't like a mistake, right? Or I'm not marked by something other than like his image. You know, I'm not tarnished. Well, I was tarnished by sin, but that's, you know, that's separate from the imago Dei of who I am. Yeah, so
that's super excellent to hear. And so just with, you know, of course, our cultural climate is just weird. Like, it's mad weirdos out here right now, and sometimes maybe even mentally we participate in the weirdo-ness, but like. But,
not me. I'm no weirdo. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
Especially like you see it in social media. You see sometimes. Like, I went to lunch with someone one time, and they opened it up with like something about CRT, and it was just it was like super random. I was like, yo, like are you a believer? Like, I want to talk to you about Christ. Like, but they opened it up like asking, am I that? Because they were going to like think of me lesser if they're like, oh, you're one of those critical race theorists. And I was like, brother, I'm much more interested in discussing the gospel. But like, just knowing culture is very polarized and alienating like this. I asked Professor Branch this same question. What particularly about the church discourages you, but also what encourages you right now from what you see?
Okay. So I think what discourages me the most is when I look out and I see the church, like from a overall perspective, like nobody want to look like Jesus. Like, when I look at what people are saying, how they're communicating to each other, how they're acting towards one another, like nobody is like, I'm gonna come up in here and exemplify what Jesus was about, what he presented himself as, how he spoke to and dealt with other people. Like, nobody is like really trying to exemplify Jesus. And it's like, wait, this is the church. And I think for me, that's like super discouraging. Like, if we're not exemplifying Jesus, if we're not exemplifying the Messiah, Hamashiach, all of that, right? You know, like, we could go down all those lines. If we're not exemplifying God in flesh, who came down and modeled what it is to be the perfect man, then I'm like that. That leaves me with like, well, what is the message you're communicating? Because your actions and what you are, how you're living and presenting yourself isn't adding up. You know, to your orthopraxy, so to speak, isn't adding up to what your orthodoxy is saying. And I think that's super discouraging for me.
It's really good that you say that, because I think a lot of the things that even I personally see right now is that in word, there's a Christocentric hermeneutic, what you write, what you say to people, all these things. But in the way that we live and have even lived out like these political seasons, like you said, the orthopraxy, it seems that there is a side-centric hermeneutic, like your side, and so even when we say transcend, we're not saying transcend your culture at all.
Not
We're
me.
saying transcend. Yeah, not me. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we gotta transcend like the thinking. Like it's more. Maybe it's less of a transcending and more of a getting back to. Like, The Bible is what we relate on. The Bible is what we unite over.
Yeah.
And particularly, we want to show that there has been that thread in Black culture historically. But what encourages you though?
Yeah, can I touch on something you just said real quick?
Yeah, please do.
I think just to like double click on that a little bit is like, to me, like the things that make us different are like God-given things, right? Like he allowed them to be.
Right.
And so because of that, like when we walk and exemplify Christ, those things are highlighted, but he's highlighted in it. So his glory and his goodness is magnified, even in the differences between us culturally and racially and all those different things. Like, and that is like the unifying, tying thing that we can see. So that's why I say I'm discouraged, because I believe even in our cultural differences, there can be a continuity and a unity that expresses and glorifies God, because he has inherently giving us these different perspectives and presentations that can just magnify his name. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna start preaching right here. I'm ready. I'm ready. You know, I go up a couple of octaves. There you go. But and so what I'm encouraged by is things like Transcend, right? Where we can highlight his goodness in a specific culture, even like in a specific representation of who he is. We can come together and look at how God gave us a specific type of preaching that glorifies him, that is more prevalent in a certain culture. We could look at a specific expression of music that glorifies him and gives us something different than another culture might give. But we can look at that and see God in it, and then he gets the glory from it. And so that's what I see in this presentation of the Transcend Conference, and that to me, in this climate of separateness, I think I'm looking forward to it. So
that's so excellent, and it's always encouraging to hear that, even as we plan. Because there is a very specific angle towards the Black church. Blackness, Christ, faithfulness in it. But as far as like the community that we want to be here with us, it is very much so the Revelation 7 vision. So that's excellent.
And I say that, as I said, I'm a product of the Black church, and I love the culture, but like I've been in white spaces, and I've been able to glean from white spaces and grab things from this culture and, those spaces, and to be able to like see God's glory in that too. And so I don't say, I don't talk about Black culture to like discredit other cultures, but just to say, nah, this culture got something great that's dope too, that God gets glory in as well as others. So
excellent. So you might have answered this already, but do you have anything else on why do you think something like Transcend is necessary? I know you spent a lot of your breath on it, so good. And that's great.
No. I think it's necessary too, because even in talking about Black culture, like it's not like this one thing, right? It's not a monolith. And I think just knowing, so let me throw this in there, like the preachers that you have at Transcend are some of my favorite preachers. I mean top notch. And I'm not saying this to like.
Listen, we're so surprised that everybody said yes. Like, we love everyone that's coming, but
like I tried to get my wife to let me move to Alabama, I think it is, to study under Robert Smith Jr. And she was like, "Nah, we're not going to Alabama." So I hope Robert Smith Jr. sees this and gives me some opportunity, maybe online or something, to study under him.
Hopefully we'll get him on.
Right.
Real soon. So yeah.
But I mean, he is like a master when it comes to presenting the gospel. And so for me, I'm just glad to be in the building with that man. As well as so John O, when I came into this space, these different spaces, when I came, because in the black church, it's like we're not really listening to a lot of different people in different camps and different spaces. But I was actually introduced to different spaces because of Christian hip hop. So I began to see different guys and hear about different names. And so I heard about John O. Just through looking at different videos. It might have been Gospel Coalition. I don't know what it was, but I had begun to follow him in his church. And it's like, man, that dude is solid preacher. And I mean, when I say one of my favorite, he's a dude that let me say this too to John O, man. I don't know why he stopped putting his sermons. Yeah, let me talk to you, John O. I don't know why you stopped putting your sermons on podcasts during COVID, but I was listening to John O on a weekly basis, and then they switched it up. And the Windows and Mirrors podcast is dope. It's dope, but it was just something about getting that word from John O on a week,
helping so many people even in this church that I disciple. So
he's one of my favorites, and of course, Deuce is my brother, brother, mentor, everything. That's my guy. That's my guy. Deuce is my dude, and he's absolutely one of my favorite preachers. I've followed him, around the United States just to go with him to hear him preach. And so he's my guy. And then of course Clint, my brother in the faith. We're here pastoring together, and that's my dude. And so it's like, man, these dudes is solid, and so they my dudes. And then let me say this, because I know I'm taking a lot of time to answer these questions, but the worship, brother, I'm ready. If y'all don't know about this guy right here,
stop it.
He's going to lead us into the Holy of Holies. We're going to go up into the third heaven and all of that. And so I'm definitely looking forward
Shout out to TK. He going to do it.
Oh, yeah. My man TK. Oh, man.
Yeah. We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work.
So I'm ready to worship, Doc. I'm ready to worship. I'm ready to hear the word of God, and it's going to be a celebration, a celebration, and it's going to be so good, especially coming out of COVID. This, year and a half?
A long time.
It's been a lot, man. There's been a lot of anxiousness and not being able to get with the people of God and hear the word of God and to worship together. And so coming out of that, it's like, for me, Transcend is the perfect culmination of celebration to really have a good time of word and worship. And I'm ready, Doc.
We're glad that you're ready, man. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm just excited. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Well, listen, Pastor Hez is excited. We are excited. Are you excited? The Transcend Conference, a celebration of Christ and culture, particularly black culture, is happening here in Greensboro, North Carolina on September the 17th and the 18th of 2021. Go to www.transcendconference.com. Early bird tickets in on June 1st. But if you guys have made it to the
Go
end of this
get your
video,
ticket.
you know, you're finding out right now here first that there will be a discount code offered for early bird to extend. We won't tell you until when, but get your tickets because we want y'all in the building. We're looking forward to it so much, y'all. Thank you, Pastor Hezekiah Cunningham-Bey.
I need that discount code, Doc.
Don't listen to him. Thank y'all so much. Look, come to the conference, buy your ticket tonight. We love y'all. Bye.
Amen.
Give me that flame, give me that fresh wind, give me that rain, give me that freedom, you can have the change. Give me that God who can give me all things.